Hello there and welcome to my beginner's guide for Diplomacy is Not an Option. In this video, I'm going to sum up everything you need to know to get your foot into the door and enjoy this game. I'm going to start out from the perspective that you don't have any clue about real-time strategy games and games alike. So for many people that come from similar games, a few of these things that I introduced here might be self-explanatory, but we gotta start somewhere, right? So first up, what are we seeing here? This is your town hall. If it dies, you die. This is the center of your operations, and you gotta keep it safe under all circumstances. Up here we have our resources. There's our building menu. There's a plenitude of different menus for the city management, our mini map, and when our settlement will be attacked next. In the center of the screen, obviously, we see what's going on the map, and we have here our time settings. There's a couple of active spells down here, and I'm going to introduce all of the different parts of the game when it's time for that, instead of just explain them now bit by bit. That won't help. So your goal now is to build a castle and defend it, obviously. We have always a few troops to begin with. In this scenario, because I chose an easy map, we have quite advanced troops. This game has melee troops. You have here their stats, how well they hit, how fast they move and all. And you have ranged troops and siege engines. Siege engines have their specialty with a limited range. As you see, if something gets as close as that, they can't defend themselves anymore. It doesn't count for foot troops. So, to get started now, we need to build our base, and we need to build our army, and we need to explore and conquer the world. These are basically the three things that everything hinges about. Depending on whether you play in endless or campaign mode, in endless mode, it's really just about how the name implies to survive as long as possible, and in campaign mode, you always have a set of different goals you have to achieve per map. So, to get our base running, we need resources. Up here, you see your wood, your stone, and your iron. These three are your major building blocks, and over here, we have food. So, over here, you see how many people live in your city, and as a rule of thumb, every person eats one piece of food a day. That food gets eaten straight up at midnight. When the bell tolls, then it's time to eat. A day in this game has 200 seconds, so you have to manage to have the amount of food in your stockpiles when that time comes. Alright. You can control your troops by just clicking them and right-clicking them to move them around. That's as simple as that. You can drag and drop a rectangle over a certain amount of troops to bundle them up. And you can also hold down Control and use the numbers from 1 to 8 to assign them to a hotkey. So I hold down left Control and press 1. You see now here, that thingy showed up. And now, if I hit the number 1, I get these guys again on that hot dial key. You can also do that for buildings. So you can also take that town hall, Control 5 for example, and if you, as you see here, you can quickly access buildings that way too. So, to get ourselves resources, we go here to the Resource Production tab, get ourselves a couple of lumber mills. As you see, the costs are only workers, so feel free to plot down as many as 3 of them, because lumber is one resource you will require plenty of. Your workers will get there, build that, and then they'll start harvesting lumber and carry it back to the town hall, or to the nearest storage. So as soon as your operations are moving away further and further from the town hall, you will require storages or granaries for the food production. The other thing that we require, obviously, is, like I already said, food production. There's berry bushes out there, and there's fish deposits out of there, and we can also later build farms, but only after we've upgraded the town hall, but more about that later. So, the berry pickers will pluck berries from these here. Berries regrow, so this is sort of a replenishable resource. Whereas fishers, they fish that spot here empty, and then you get to demolish the building and build a new fishing hut. So it's basically like a mining spot. When it's empty, it's empty. It's a finite resource. As a rule of thumb, every one of these buildings can produce as much as 40 pieces of food a day under ideal circumstances. You'll never have ideal circumstances. So if you average them on 30 pieces of food a day, depending on how close or far the granary is, you get the whole picture straight. So we also need houses to get our settlement going. Houses increase the amount of citizens that can live in your town and increase the amount of citizens that you gain per day. This is very important because your citizens are a very, very important resource. Citizens are needed for building new worker camps, as you see there, and obviously also for training soldiers. So building houses is one of your major ways of getting more options to do stuff, basically. When you walk around over the map, you sometimes will find carts with certain materials. When you pick them up, always make sure that you have room in your stockpiles for that. Because here's another nice little caveat. These storages here, they not only give your troops your workers a drop-off point where they can store the stuff, they also increase your total capacity for materials. You can also configure them to only accept certain types of materials. So if you put up a storage right next to a stone mine, that would be something. So the first things that you got to do, get yourself a wood production going, get yourself a few houses going, and get yourself a food production going. With the food production, you don't need to go too far. As you see there, we have a consumption of 24 per day. Building now a berry picker and a fisherman's hut will be way more than we need. So here's a little quality of life tip from my end. Go into the options and when you have show health bars, this is the default setting. Hold Alt. I set it over to press Alt to do this. Now it marks not only the resource deposits to make them better visible, you can also see the enemy better in the forest. You see? There. So, combat is pretty simple summarized. Your troops will automatically attack the enemy when they're in the vicinity. If you give a movement order, that movement order will be completed, then they fight. If you want to avoid that, you use the attack order. You either click this one or press F as the hotkey and give them a movement order there. You see it now turned red. I unpause, and what happens now is, if they can attack, they attack. If they can't attack, they move there and will attack as soon as they can. This is what I personally refer to as attack move, and I think this is what many people do. You can also hold down the right mouse button to assign their formation when moving. The enemies will always follow you a little bit, but eventually will also stop following and pursuing you. So just take care that you don't accidentally draw them into your settlement, and you'll be fine. Ranged troops in this game have sometimes a bit of a problem with hitting moving targets. That's where your melee troops come into play. As a rough rule of thumb, your folks will regenerate HP, so don't worry to let your melees get up to the front and make it easier for your archers to shoot. What's very important to state in this game is that you need to bury your own fallen troops. While the enemy is... we don't care about the enemy when they die. When our people die, they leave behind corpses that will spread disease if you don't take care about it. To take care about it is quite simple. You build a gravedigger's house and you build a cemetery. And then the gravedigger will autonomously walk around and bury the dead for you. This is very important because if you don't do that, the disease will spread in your settlement and, well, that is a problem in the long run, and that's how to avoid it. If people get sick, after all, you can build a first aid tent early on, or you can build a hospital later down the road. These are more and less effective buildings. One little tip from my end, if you have built a gravedigger and you have no dead people around, you can just remove the worker and add that worker when it is necessary. The building won't eat anything it doesn't cost you resources or such. So, once you can afford it, at the latest, I would recommend you to build at day 3 or 4 a barracks. This is where you can transform population into new troops. You will require that because obviously you will get attacked, and therefore we need more people to defend ourselves. Another goal early on is to detect iron veins and stone deposits. These then can be harvested via stone mines. As you can see here, these go in front of the deposit. And then you just set up a storage in the vicinity there. I usually do it like that to make sure that my stone workers have a spot where they can drop the stuff. Then we scout around to make sure that everybody will be safe working there. Sometimes enemies are still abroad and will be drawn in there. Another thing which is really important the further you play are builders' houses. You start out with 2 builders that are in your castle or town hall. Once you build further and further, you will notice that your builders will originate from the town hall, walk to the project, and so on and so forth. The builder's house does circumvent that problem. You basically can and should perceive them as extensions for your building range, and that is very, very useful and handy. Okay. At the barracks, you can see you can train at first only swordsmen and archers. The troops that we see here are from the 2nd tier. To get to the 2nd tier, we need to invest 150 pieces of wood and 100 pieces of stone to get to the next tier. By the way, whenever you destroy a encampment of the rebels, they leave some soul crystals there. And with these, you can cast spells. We could here summon a couple of Dark Knights, and to get more spells, you need to build the obelisks. These will unlock more and more active spells for you, which can be very, very devastating and useful in a pinch. As a rule of thumb and a useful beginner's tip, the Astral Ray that you unlock here can easily take care of the first wave of attackers all by itself. If you are new to the game and you're worried that you're not fast enough, don't you worry. That spell alone will take care of the first wave and of a couple of troops. So, I want to talk about research next. As soon as I see that my archers are safe. So, this is the research screen. Here you can upgrade and enhance many things. The upgrades all originate from different buildings. So if you have a tier 1 town hall, you have upgrades for your builders, for your durability of your fortifications, and for your workers' speed. Barracks does upgrade your troops. Town Hall 2 will do the same as the Town Hall 1 did, just costier. Barracks 2 will upgrade the new troops, and so on and so forth. You will need to invest material and let some time pass, and you get the upgrade then globally activated as a passive effect. Worth noting here is that you can only research one project at a time, and these are very powerful and worth pursuing. These are among the more valuable goals to go for, and basically the more resources you produce to get those research projects done, the better. Alright, so besides now having to rack up lots of resources to upgrade your town hall and all, one of your major objectives will then also be to fortify your base and build walls and such. So, over here we have the fortifications menu. We can at first only build wooden walls and towers and gates. It's a very simple thing. We can build walls wherever we like, and we can only pass those walls wherever we build gates, and the towers can hold troops that get attack speed and range bonuses from that, which is really, really important. So, in general, you don't need to wall yourself in until you have hit day 10. The first wave of attackers is actually easily fend off by building a couple of towers and a couple of archers to fight them off. I'll show you how in a second. Let me build a couple of houses. So here, by the way, this house formation is pretty useful. I build a U-shaped thing here. Later, there will be a city fountain in the center, which increases the capacity of people living there. And at the very end, you set a last house here to close up the donut, and that will basically give you a nice amount of work and people to work with. So, to fortify yourself, you will need ranged fighters. The archers are not bad at all, and every tower that you build can hold 9 archers. So, when you're looking for spots to build your walls at, always try to keep your walls as far away from the housing as possible. The housing is your most vulnerable part of your fort, and should always be kept away from your fortifications, because if your enemies break through there and start wrecking the houses, this cuts you off of your population really, really quickly. As you see here, I build around the corner. Here we can now build towers. Very important though, don't build the towers into the wall, but build it behind the wall, something like that. This way you'll make sure that the enemy has to break the wall before they get to attack your towers. That is very, very useful, because once the enemy is starting to crack your towers, the people stationed there will lose their range advantage and everything. So basically you want to keep those towers alive as long as possible. With this, you need to only set up now just a couple of wooden gates. As soon as the next flock of wood is in there, that's done. So gates have a tricky little caveat. They needed to be controlled. Gates are, as per default, opened, so your workers and your troops can just freely move through. But when you're getting attacked, you'll need to manually tell that door to close. Otherwise, your enemy will just run through. You can use that for different purposes. For one, you can just close the door and let the enemy bang against it. That's what most of us will do. But, by the way, you can here prioritize buildings by just clicking there. But you can also just station a big, fat chunk of melee troops, let a portion of the enemy in, then close the door in between, and, you know, you can strategize that. The button that you need to look for is this one. Gates are opened or gates are closed. But what's really important is you need to play around that mechanic, otherwise it'll bite your back, and you don't want that. So, to station troops on a tower, you just select them and right-click them, and then they'll move on a tower. Also worth noting, a gate can host 6 troops as well, and each piece of wall can also host an archer. So you can totally get yourself your troops there. And here, you see the next attack will be staging from here, and we are at a pretty good position. So here's a quick setup, by the way, that you can use if you don't want to build an entire fortification for the early attacks. And then we're pretty much done with the beginners tutorial. So, the first wave that's attacking you is, as per usual, pretty small. So it's absolutely no problem to set up something like this here. So we're going to go for this. Couple of walls around it. Roughly in the way where you expect the enemy to hit town. Add 18 archers as soon as you have the resources for that. And just set up a couple of archers on top of those towers, and you're golden. That is absolutely enough to fight off the first attack. And if anything goes wrong, you always have your active spells. The trick here, and the real art behind it, is to foresee where the enemy will hit town and will start attacking you. So, last few things, you can always select a building and right-click it to set up a flag where they should send produced troops. But you can also select buildings like the Gravedigger's house and right-click them here to send them to do their grave digging somewhere else. You can do that basically for everybody, also for woodcutters. If the wood is cut around the woodcutter's place, you can just order them to go somewhere else. Let me show you. So here, like this. This guy is now ordered to work there. You can use that to your own advantage with a couple of stockpiles that are working out smart to your advantage. And, well, to give you a little bit of a thing to, as a foreshadowing of what you should do there, your first goal should be to rush towards the resources for a tier 2 town hall. Get that done as quick as you can, and then the next thing you will need is to get yourself a engineer's guild going and set up catapults. Then you will need to build a market and start exporting goods to get gold and upgrade your town hall then again as fast as possible to tier 3. And once that's done, very important note, you'll need siege engines, catapults, trebuchets, or ballistae on towers to crack the enemy's siege engines. And yeah, I think that summed it up. You should now know pretty much all you need to know to have some fun with the game. The last thing that I want to say here, while I let these while I let this attack hopefully get defended here, the real art here when playing these games is to get faster and faster, and as a rule of thumb, there is no such thing as too much resource. There is no such thing as too many soldiers or too much defense. Nothing of this is a thing. If you feel like you could spend some workers into some more resource generation, do it. It's always, my personal verdict is, try to get as many soldiers as you need, but as few as possible, and invest the rest into economy. The goal and the big difficulty there is that if you invest not enough into soldiers, you lose. So, yeah. As a last word that I want to close out the game with, eventually you'll get attacked from all sides, constantly, so plan ahead and build your city like that, with towers and troops everywhere, so you manage to fend off that occasional attack. I think that's enough for a beginner's tutorial. There's always something to learn out of all our defeats, and I hope you enjoy this game as much as I do. Leave some comments down below if you have anything to add, if you feel like I missed out something, or if you want to give some beginners some different piece of advice. I'll be really, really glad to hear back from you. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, consider checking out the description box. You'll find links to support Icon Gaming financially there as well. I'd be very, very happy if you chose to do so. Many thanks to all of you who do, and a lot of thanks for watching this video up until the very end. Really means a lot to me. Thanks for being around, and see you soon.